Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name is Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. And we are talking about 5 more movies that came out this week between May 28th and May 30th. This is episode 21. We can drink. Don't drink, though. I don't need drunk Brian on the show. Most importantly, I forgot to say this last week, we're over 100 movies. We are over 100 movies on this show. I will say this. I think you and I have both agreed so far, Brian. I think halfway through I think at the end of June, I think you and I are going to do like a half-year episode of Weekend Crusaders. We're going to talk about the first half of the year's movies. Talk about the stinkers and the surprisers and all this kind of stuff. But it has been a very interesting 100 movies. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, it's been quite a variety. I mean, we've had great movies we both love. We've had movies that we've had very different opinions on, and definitely plenty that we both didn't like. So it'll be fun to look back and see, what was the stinker of stinkers. Yeah.
Exactly. So be on the lookout for that. But we are now into the hundreds, and we've got 5 movies to talk about this week. Some very divisive between the two of us. One especially very divisive, and then the other ones I would say are relatively liked for the most part from us in this, which is going to be, it'll be an interesting chat. We'll see if we have whole lot to talk about, or if we just kind of blitz through this quickly. But first things first, we're going to start with, usually we either start with this or end with this because it's the ones that talk about the most, and that is this week's stinker. This week's stinker, we were talking about this last week on the show. This movie is known for something that has really nothing to do with the movie, which sucks. But to me, this is how I've always remembered this film, is not because of the movie itself, but because of what it represents. And this week's stinker is the failed, I'm trying to think what failed, like Oregon Trail kind of comedy. Frontier, that was the word I was thinking about, Frontier comedy. Almost Heroes. Almost Heroes came out May 29th, 1998, had a budget of $30 million. Wow, where'd that money go? Had a weekend opening of $2.8 million, which was number 7 its opening weekend, behind Godzilla, second week, yikes. Hope Floats in its first week, Deep Impact in its 4th week, The Horse Whisperer in its 3rd week, Bulworth in its 3rd week, and I got the Hookup in its first week, and had a finished box office of $6 million. Yeah, this movie, I think most people remember this movie not for the movie itself, but that was the last film of the comedian Chris Farley. I think for most of the movie, I think you and I were talking about Chris Farley more than enjoying the actual film itself. I mean, obviously everyone knows Chris Farley, Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, SNL, Billy Madison. He's a very loud, obnoxious, but funny comedian. But the one thing I think you and I were both in agreement on with this movie is, man, this was a horrible last film for him to go on.
It really was. I mean, he had a part in Dirty Work, which came out after this, but this is the last one starring Chris Farley that he was in. But yeah, I mean, it's of all of his movies, because I mean, obviously Tommy Boy is, I think, universally considered his best film. I would agree with that.
Beyond
that, I mean, some of his other ones like Black Sheep and that I think they're okay, but it's definitely not Tommy Boy level. And then he made some kind of bad ones. But I liked him best when he showed up in a lot of supporting roles in anything from Airheads and things like that. Where he just pop up in either a supporting role through the whole movie or even just a cameo in one scene. And those are kind of the movies that I thought I liked him best in. In this movie, it almost seemed like even he had become like a caricature of himself. He was just doing his look, I can be loud and I can, his like physical.
Won't you just?
It really looked like somebody who's doing, like, if they told somebody do an impression of Chris Farley, that's what he was doing in this movie.
Like an SNL sketch, like someone who's doing Farley on SNL. Yeah, I think what was it, like after the 3rd line of his, you were already like, all right, I'm over this. Because
he was just doing his usual
his Chris Farley like very animated yelling, and less of him just talking. And sometimes some of his best comedy is him just talking, not him doing the whole kind of thing. I mean, obviously he's a very physical comedian, and it's usually physicality of him getting hurt, or something like that. But sometimes his where he thinks he's being super smart and he's really, really stupid, is some of the best comedy that he does. And in this movie, most of the movie is just him being just very loud and brash. And Matthew Perry, who we love we love Matthew Perry. From Friends and Fools Rush In, Three to Tango. I love the whole 9 yards. I know you're not a huge whole nine, series fan, but wow, Matthew Perry is bad in this movie.
He really is. I mean, Matthew Perry, obviously from Friends, I love him, and he had done movies before because he did parts when he was first starting out his career. But then he basically broke out because after Friends hit big, his first big movie was Fools Rush In, which we loved, and his second movie was this. And I can understand why he signed on to it. He's like, hey, it's Chris Farley. I love Tommy Boy. This movie's a great chance to act with him. I'm being directed by Christopher Guest. I got
Eugene Levy.
Levy and these other people in the movie. So I can see why he'd sign on to this movie. But even, and you can't even just blame the movie because his performance in this is bad. First of all, he's doing this bad accent that there's no even reason for him to even be doing an accent. He could just do his normal voice.
I was like, it's like he's trying to impersonate Kevin Kline, but failing miserably at it.
Yeah. So his performance wasn't good, and it was like there were times when it's like again he was almost like he was trying to do like Chandler in the Old West, and it didn't work then. And then we tried to create this new character apparently with this weird accent that didn't work either. And yeah, some of that could be the script and things like that, but it was just this was a bad movie for both these actors. It really was. I mean,
not even Eugene Levy could make this funny. I mean, even Kevin Pollak. Kevin Pollak is in it as El Doggo and all this. I mean, you
Kevin Dunn.
Sorry, Kevin Dunn.
I was like, Kevin Pollak was in this?
No, Kevin Dunn. I'm sorry. Kevin Dunn's a doggo. Even his character is very one note. Eugene Levy's playing like a Frenchman.
And they were both doing Mandy Patinkin impressions from Princess Bride.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, why do they all look and sound like Mandy Patinkin from The Princess Bride? Like, I'm just like, you killed my father. So to die. Like, and you know what? That impression right there was better than their impressions. Because that's what they were in this film. It was just everything was like they were dressed like him, they looked like him, and then they spoke like him. It was like he's supposed to be French, you're supposed to be a Spaniard, yet you both sound like Mandy Patinkin for The Princess Bride. Yeah. Didn't work. And the one actor that we were actually excited to see, which was what's his name?
Bokeem Woodbine.
Right. Say it again.
Bokeem Woodbine.
Yeah, Bokeem Woodbine from the big hit that we talked about a couple weeks ago. We were like, oh great, he's in this, and he's saddled to like 3 lines in the movie.
He really is like he's like there in the background of every scene, and I almost thought he was going to be kind of like I didn't like this movie, but I mean this type character in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
I knew exactly what you go with
Dave Chappelle. He almost kind of looked like him in this movie too, but he's kind of always just there with the hero, but he had plenty of comedic lines. In here, Bokeem Woodbine is essentially a straight character. I don't even think he says any jokes or anything that I even remember. He's just basically standing in the background as like basically his manservant, essentially.
Yeah, he's just like the one guy who's like aware of how stupid everything is.
Yeah.
But obviously because he's like the black servant, he can't say anything. But yeah, even in the whole situation of where they're at, they never make him being a man of color a big issue in the film whatsoever.
And he doesn't get to do anything, which I mean, as we saw in The Big Hit, that guy's got some personality. He can be a lot of fun.
Well, yeah.
Now, I understand he wasn't a star at the time or anything, and this actually came out the same year, so I'm not sure which came out first. I guess this must have come out later because we're talking about this weeks later.
Well, it had to have been made previously because he was bald in The Big Hits, and he had hair, and this was just looked really weird.
Yeah. You know what? I think the release of this did get delayed because he died and everything. But
yeah, exactly.
So The Big Hit had come out at this point by the time before this got released, but I guess this might have been filmed first. But yeah, he didn't get to do anything or show any of that personality that we saw in The Big Hit.
But I mean, the main problem with the movie, first off, it's these two characters, they're basically trying to beat Lewis and Clark. So naturally they had to copy Lewis and like you had to have an Indian woman or Native American woman, stuff like that. Which that part was fine, but it's just like it just wasn't funny. Nothing was funny. Like none of the gags. There was, it was Matthew Perry being Matthew Perry, and then it was Chris Farley being Chris Farley. But the jokes weren't there, and that's why I was telling you. I was like, I think Chris Farley works so well at being Chris Farley just because he had David Spade next to him, and David Spade was the perfect counterweight to Chris Farley's comedy. Matthew Perry is not that counterweight. It is an opposites attract situation that doesn't work.
I have to wonder if there's some reason that David Spade didn't want to do this movie or what, because I have to think they would have wanted the two of them together for this. Maybe they just felt they worked together too much. and they didn't want
I
to do a
think
third movie together.
It was probably like, this looks horrible. I'm not doing
Well,
it.
I don't know, but if David Spade, you put him in this, I think that I wouldn't have been a great movie, but I think their natural chemistry would have at least worked better.
Well, because you have Spade as like the Weasley kind of character, and like Matthew Perry's not. Matthew Perry's just playing the
It would have been a little bit different character to it, yeah.
Exactly. You could have you could keep Matthew Perry, just have Spade be there as like not to replace our boy in the movie, but if he had been like Matthew Perry's like little manservant, and like just having those three work together, I think the movie would have even been better because Spade would have lines, and it would work. And then you add Eugene Levy, that's a great like foursome of comedy right there that I think probably would have made the film better. I think Spade just probably maybe saw the script or wasn't even offered it at all. And it was just kind of, you got to remember, like after Black Sheep, like Farley went on to do like Beverly Hills Ninja and this, like he kind of broke off to do his own thing, and Spade kind of went into like rom-com territory with oh god, what was it, Lost and Found? Like Spade kind of went off to do his own thing. Like they both kind of went separate ways, and not that Spade did the right movies or anything like that, but I mean definitely probably had a better go of it than Farley did. Yeah. But yeah, just the movie itself. I think you and I both said this, like we both had seen parts of this film before. I'm
not even sure I'd ever seen parts. I don't think I'd seen any of it besides the trailer.
The eagle scene is what I remember. I remember the eagle scene, and it's so, once again, just overdone. And I was just like, are you talking about the eagle scene at the end? I'm talking about the scene where he's trying to get the egg.
Yeah, well, both of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just the whole movie you're going through, and like there's just certain parts where you and I are talking about, like they could have just done this, and that would have worked the same way. But then it's like, why are we trying to reason with this film? We're not. It's pointless. And it was just one of those movies where, once again, with our stinkers, they're either very fun to watch, to poke fun at and have a good time with, or they're just incredibly dull, boring, especially when they're comedies. That makes it that much worse. And that's the problem with Almost Heroes. It's just like we have two actors, or three if you count Eugene Levy, that we like with a competent director and Christopher Guest, but just a dull story. Don't care about any of the characters. None of the characters are likable. Actually, no. The one character that was likable, I wanted to mention this person because he was the one guy that you and I were like, I don't hate this guy. Was it Bidwell?
David Packer, yeah.
David Packer, who played Bidwell. He's like the one character I think in the movie that we all kind of were like, I don't hate this character. Like, I don't hate this actor's portrayal. Like, he's doing a decent job. And he's like a third, fourth secondary character, but he was like the heart of the story. Just because he's the one who got shit on like the entire time. But yeah, he's like, you don't care about Matthew Perry, you don't care about Farley, and like when the movie ends, we're like, is this trying to set up a sequel?
Oh God.
We remember it was like, we're gonna go out to here. It's like, no, we're not. Because
it was a very strange ending. It was like,
mainly because Farley died, but still, it's just like, it's not. No, this movie. I mean, literally, it cost $30 million to make. It made $6 million. No, there was not going to be a sequel to that shit.
It opened behind movies that I hadn't even heard of. But, so.
Exactly. But yeah, there's not a whole lot redeeming quality in this film, other than if you want to see Chris Farley's last performance. But even then, go watch his performances that made him who he is. Don't watch his last film. I mean, it's one thing it was like you watch Raul Julia's last performance in Street Fighter because he killed it, and the movie sucked. He was doing, for as sick as he was in that film, he was a great M. Bison. Like, you watch that out of respect. Like, don't watch this one of Chris Farley, because you're just gonna be like, man, this makes me sad, and not like this movie said. Like, this makes me sad. This is what he went out on.
Yeah,
it's a bummer that he went out on this one. But yeah, I don't think this is on anything, is it?
Nope.
No.
Cinemax. If anybody still subscribes to Cinemax.
Yeah, and there's no reason for you guys to go out of your way to watch it, and that's why it's a stinker, and that's why we're talking about it, because we're telling you guys don't watch it, because Brian and I wasted an hour and a half on this, and it was very dull and boring. So moving on, we're gonna go to my pick. I kind of went the easy route this week with my pick. I went with a kind of a surefire, like, yeah, screw it, I'll pick this one. It's an easy one. I picked a beloved film. I think it's getting more flack nowadays than it did. Like it was so like well loved, and then it had the sequel. I like the sequel. A lot of people shit on the sequel. I actually really like the sequel, and now it's kind of like people don't want to talk about this that much anymore. But I'm talking about one of my favorite Pixar films, and that is the 2003 ocean comedy Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo came out May 30th, 2003, had a budget of $94 million. I don't understand how these films get that expensive. Had a weekend opening of $70.25 million. Number one its opening weekend. Spent 2 weeks at number one, but not consecutively. It had a week off where it was number two, and then it came back and it got the number one spot again. Had a finished box office of $940.35 million, $380.8 million domestic, and $559.5 million international. Yeah, Finding Nemo. I think maybe it's probably getting a lot more flack now because of what's going on with Ellen DeGeneres with the Ellen Show. But I mean, it's a cartoon. Like, stop trying to make what's happening in real life mess with the cartoon shows. I mean, first off, Finding Nemo. I really enjoyed Finding Nemo. I think it's one of those where yes, the main story is Albert Brooks's Marlin and Dory with Ellen DeGeneres, but it's got a great cast around them. Whether they're in for one scene or whether they're characters throughout the whole film. That's what I love about this movie is not necessarily Marlin and Dory, but everyone around them that they meet or that Nemo meets. I really, really enjoy this film overall. Plus, it looks gorgeous. I mean, it's a Pixar film. Of course, it's going to look gorgeous. But I mean, obviously, for me, one of my favorite parts of the film is, of course, the sharks. I'm a huge shark guy, and of course, having a great white named Bruce, who doesn't want to eat fish. Hello, and I love the sharks. I wish they were in it more, but I get why they weren't. But I love that even in the shark chase scene, they did like Jaws callbacks during that scene, which I love. Obviously, the turtles. Who doesn't love the turtles? And then, of course, the fish in the aquarium. I thought was great. Brian, what are your thoughts on Finding Nemo?
So Finding Nemo is one of those ones where you talk about it. I think it's more flack allowing. I don't think it does. I think it just gets kind of not forgotten, but people talk about like the original Toy Story, things like that, and then now they talk about like all the new ones, like Soul and Inside Out and all these things that so emotional and they're great for adults too. And so I think some of these ones in the middle kind of era, like Finding Nemo, just kind of get pushed by the wayside a little bit. And while this one is definitely a classic, I do think also that the sequel, which I enjoyed, not nearly as much as Finding Nemo, but I still enjoyed it. But I think that because of that, a lot of people, it has lowered their opinion of Finding Nemo just because, it felt like a unnecessary kind of cash-in sequel at the time, which obviously studios do plenty of those. But I think, especially at the time that came out, people were like, of all the stories you could tell, why are you telling another story about Dory, instead of other Pixar movies you could be making? So I think that people aren't trashing Nemo because of itself, or even because I don't think that Ellen DeGeneres, I think that had anything to do with anything.
No, I think more of it is because I think Dory made so much money, and a lot of people were like, Dory wasn't good. It's like, and then it just flashed back onto Nemo itself. And it's
but I think it's a reflection on the movie itself. I really enjoy Nemo. It's first of all, like you said, the animation is beautiful, especially for when this was made, because I mean, like, there's still kind of in the early years of computer animation. I mean, what was 95 was Toy Story 1. That's the first, this is only 8 years after that. And even like 2000, 2001, when they did Monsters Inc., that's the first time they could really convincingly do like, fur and hair, where every single strand of hair was like animated basically. And then here they managed to get, water, and not only just the motion of the water, but the lighting in the water. They talk about it's one of the most difficult things that they could do in animation. And they do it, and every scene in here just looks beautiful. Story, it was fun. I found myself, I was more interested in the story with maybe this is because I'm a parent, but with Marlin and Nemo, kind of the way he was overprotective of him, and he learned to let him go, and especially the fact that he was like, he had the one, what do they call his lucky fin or whatever. Lucky fin, he knew that his son had these, special circumstances. So but just the relationship between those two, I really enjoyed. Like I said, the supporting cast, this movie kind of has it's lucky, and then it gets to basically have two separate supporting casts, because there's, like you said, everybody in the aquarium with Nemo, and then everybody that Marlin and Dory are meeting along the way. So it kind of has, gets to have like even that many more supporting characters in it. And then of course the voice cast they assemble for it is, phenomenal. So.
Okay, I want to ask you this. I'm sure this is just me. I'm sure it's just me. You'd be like, no, Sean, I never thought that at all. It made me feel like I'm on an island by myself. I don't know for what reason. Oh God, what's the name of the fish in the movie? Blanket on it.
There's lots of fish.
Gil.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's Defoe, but for some reason, I always kept thinking it was Dennis Leary. Like I was listening, I was like, it could be like I hear Dennis Leary in there, and I hear Defoe. I don't know why.
Nope, that's just you.
I'm on this island by myself, and I'm okay with it.
Yes, you are.
But I love the Gil character. I do. But there are times where I feel like I'm hearing Dennis Leary and I'm hearing Willem Dafoe. It doesn't matter. I love both actors. I'm happy that either one of them were in the movie. But
that's okay, because for the longest time, I thought that the Nemo's mom, Cora, I thought that was Bonnie Hunt for the longest time. And I just found out it was Elizabeth Perkins. I'm like, oh, okay, I can hear that now.
There's so like same thing with like the crabs at the end, like the little like wasn't one of those like Hugh Jackman? I thought one of those, or is that in the sequel?
No, I think it's in the sequel.
I was like Hugh Jackman's in one of these as like one of the crabs that are Australian and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like
I will say that's one of the parts I like best was the little birds. I just had mine.
What?
And then
what?
And then of course Jeffrey Rush as the pelican. So
yeah, Jeffrey Rush was great as the pelican. There's just so many little individual characters, voice casting. Which I mean, like with Pixar, you get that. I mean, Toy Story, yes, you've got the whole Toy Story cast, but as the movies progress, they have less and less lines to talk about. With Nemo, because it's kind of its own thing, they all have their most. Brad Garrett as the blow up puffer fish, I think is what it's called. God, I'm blanking on everyone's names, so I don't have the cast list in front of me. But each one of those characters, like Stephen Root as the bubbles fish, and who played the starfish?
Is that Allison Janney?
Allison Janney, yeah, that's totally Allison Janney. Now that I hear the voice in my head, each one of them had their own individual characters, their own personalities. I like that they weren't just generic fish character one, generic fish character number two, and like even that little aquarium had its own life. You had the Mount Honolulu or Wakalugi or something like that. I love the story that it creates through here, and then like you said, you have the adventures of Marlin and Dory with the jellyfish and I don't even know what we want to call the fish with the little light bulb, the deep sea
lanternfish, I think they're called.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, and then you had was it Ham from Toy Story basically playing like all the fish that like mock things. I don't know what you want to call those fish, but anyway, it's like it's a very fun story. And then of course you have like the villain technically is Darla. There's just a little kid who just gets really, really excited about fish. There was a at when I used to work at my old job, there was an employee who worked there who actually looked like Darla. So we just called her Darla all the time.
Oh, that's so mean.
It is me, because whenever she'd be annoyed, I was like, go shake some fish and kill him. I'm not Darla, you asshole. I was like, prove it. We just throw a chicken at her and she'd be like, don't kill it. And she like we would mess with her hardcore. She's great. She's a hilarious girl. But like the first time we met her, like that was the first time she had the braces too. And we're like, oh, you're so Darla. That's right. We also worked with Wreck-It Ralph as well. We had a lot of people who looked like Pixar or Disney.
Who are you?
Me, we had a different game for me on what I was. We had like, if we were Star Wars, what character would I be? I was clearly R2. And then like Lord of the Rings, I think I was obviously Smeagol, which I was fine with because I do the Smeagol voice.
I'm sorry. Anyway, tangent. Sorry.
I'm totally okay with that. But anyway, it's yeah, I said tangent over. Finding Nemo, I feel like it's such a yes. Does it go the Pixar route of let's try to rip your heart out in the first 5 minutes, like it did with like Up and everything? But they don't give us enough time to really care about. Was it Cora? Is it Cora or Coral? Coral and Marlin. But it's more or less the story of Dory. And her, having the short-term memory and not being able to remember stuff. And then her at the end basically saying, like, don't leave me. You're the only person that makes me remember things, which I think that's why we got the sequel. It's because I feel like there was a lot more story for Dory, which is why the sequel is very Dory-centric. But yeah, I really like Finding Nemo. It's one of those, it's not my probably nowadays it's not my top 5, but it's definitely one of those where whenever it's on, I'm like, oh, awesome. I want to watch this, not just because the story's good, because it just looks gorgeous. Plus, who here has not gone to an aquarium or a zoo since this movie come out and not look for Dory and Nemo or Marlin when you go to the aquarium? Because I do that every freaking time. And plus, it's great when you go there too and you're looking forward to it and you hear little kids going, "There's Dory, there's Nemo." It's just like, that's awesome. Like, that's awesome that like you can do that and not only create a movie or story that all ages will be able to understand and then love, but like you go out into the world and you have people trying to find those characters when they go to the zoo. I love that.
You probably couldn't go to the aquarium and do that? Your friend Darla.
No, she's probably banned.
The kids would all be like, boo.
Exactly. I mean, she'd probably be banned because she kills fish. And she knows that. You know who you are, Morgan. But anyway. Anyway, Finding Nemo, I mean, it's a Pixar film, so naturally it's on Disney Plus. Yep. So you guys can find it everywhere, but Disney Plus is definitely where you can get it. And then, like I said, check out the sequel if you've never seen the sequel. But if you guys need some good old-fashioned Pixar goodness, you can't go wrong with Finding Nemo. Yeah, so now we are going to be going to our revisited film. This is one of those movies. Once again, it's one of those times where this is a movie. You cold there, sweetie?
I am cold. Sweetie? Yikes. Anyway, go on.
Put
no, I'm doing this for the next movie. I'm trying to, this is for the next movie.
Good. I'll give, that was a good one. I'm gonna let you have that. That's a good what's the word? When you
transition?
Thank you. That's a good transition thing. Anyway, sorry you guys all had we're just gonna move on from this. Anyway. So we're in our revisited. This is one of those movies that I think you and I we look back at it. We're like, oh, that movie was awesome. That movie was great. But because it's I would say it's one of the,
I remember liking it. I don't think I ever would have said, oh, it's awesome, it's great. But I remember enjoying it.
Look back at 90s action films. This is up there in a lot of the rankings. I'm not saying it's the best or anything, but people go, this gets brought up, but it's one of those things where because it's revisited, does it still hold the weight that it did back in 1993? And the movie that we are talking about is Sylvester Stallone. I almost said Sylvester the cat. I don't know where my brain's at today.
That would be a cool movie.
That's basically every Looney Tunes thing, but instead of it being the desert, it's a snow. We are so just off the rails already.
Sean's worked a lot this week. He's a little.
It's been a really, really long week, guys. The revisited film, finally, is 1993's Sylvester Stallone action film Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger came out May 28th, 1993, had a budget of $70 million, had a weekend opening of $16.17 million. Number one its opening weekend, spent 2 weeks at number one, and had a finished box office of $255 million, $84 million domestic, and $170.05 million international. I would say, and if I'm not right about this, I want you to give me a counterweight to this. This is probably the most iconic opening to a Stallone film. Would you say?
Off the top of my head, I would say yes.
I mean, because it's not like another Rockies.
You're talking about the whole opening scene, the whole section, right?
I'm talking about the whole sequence. Like, I mean, it's been spoofed. Like I said last week with Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. This is literally like this opening scene with the whole, holding her and the buckhole snapping, all that whole sequence. I think is probably Stallone's most iconic opening to a film. I think it sets the pace for the rest of the film. The problem is that the movie no longer, at least in my eyes, keeps that momentum through the whole movie. Before I dive into that part of it, Brian, what are your thoughts of Cliffhanger as a whole?
I apologize in advance. I'm holding back a sneeze right here. Originally or now?
Start originally and then we'll go into now.
So when I originally saw it, back in '93, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good action movie. It was clearly just another one in the wake of Die Hard. doing the Die Hard on a whatever. This one happened to be Die Hard on a mountain. But directed by the director of Die Hard 2, I will say that, Rennie Harlan. But it was one of the better ones, though. I mean, yes, it was a Die Hard knockoff, but I thought it was good. It was entertaining. Sylvester Stallone, I've never really thought of as like this great thespian or anything, but he was fine. He handled the action well. I liked the supporting cast, and it was a good early summer movie. Watching it now, it's still entertaining enough. I don't know. I'd say it's at least average, if not slightly above average. I can't call it good. A lot of that has to do with just some of it's nitpicky stuff. I mean, like John Lithgow and his little unnecessary British accent. It's like there was no reason for that character to be British, so why make him do this accent?
I mean, we know he can play a great villain. We've seen him in Dexter. It's the most iconic series or season of the show of him playing the Trinity Killer. And then I watch her back at this, and I'm like, what? Where's your motivation here, Lithgow?
He's just doing this wild British accent, it's almost like he's trying to be more cartoony about it, but it's like it was totally unnecessary.
Almost like he knows he's the smartest guy in the room, and it needs to be British.
Apparently,
yeah.
I don't know. And then the rest of it, it was just the action was good, but it felt very, kind of same old thing. I mean, maybe it's just because years later we've seen so many action movies and they do it the same way. I don't know, but I still enjoyed the movie, but not as much as I remembered liking it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. Like when I think back on it, I was like, before we watched this again, and I saw Cliffhanger. First thing that came to mind was the opening scene. And then I was like, all right, awesome. Lithgow's a bad guy. I remember this movie being awesome as a kid. I remember the end with the helicopter and everything. Like, this is going to be fun. And then I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, Michael Rooker screams a lot in this film. Man, Michael Rooker is basically borderline on tears for the most of this movie. I love Michael Rooker, but
the movie starts out with this woman dying. Come on. With him watching his woman
most of this movie, like, there's at least 3 slow-mos of him going, no! Like, one with the girl dying. I think another one was when he thought Stallone was going to die. And 3 is when the old man gets shot. But it's him doing the running, like, no! I was like, they just, like...
Maybe if he wasn't always moving in slow-mo, he could save them. Just saying.
I mean, he was Mary Poppins, y'all. I mean, he could have the power to save them. But I was just like, man, Michael Rooker's character is really annoying in this film. But here's the thing. First off, I watched it on Prime, which they have it in 4K remastered in this. And at first I was like, oh, this looks great. Till they started, the scenery shots look great. Until they started showing, everyone. And I was like, oh, the remastering of this is rough. It's like their face, their skin's, moving. Because it's like they're trying to digitize everything. And it's like, oh, this looks just off like crazy. Here's the problem that was bugging me profusely. And once again, could it be, that was 93 and we've seen, hundreds upon hundreds of action films since then? I don't think that's the case, but oh my God, these villains are fucking morons. They are so goddamn stupid in this movie. Oh, Stallone, go up there, grab that one case, kill him. Cool. So you don't like money. You just were totally cool with him sacrificing the fucking case at that point. Their whole point is to find these 3 cases. Yet, the first time they find one, they're like, kill him. Do you not know that he is holding on to the case? If he falls off the fucking cliff, the case goes with it. Cool, let's start an avalanche. Cool, you're never going to get your money. It's like, what was the point? What is your point in this film? It's to get the money. What are you doing? Giving you every reason for you not to recover your money. Throughout this film, especially, what was the main this actor? Rex Lynn's character, Richard Tarvis. He's like the guy that was like the Fed.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh my God, his performance in this film is awful, just awful. It's so just all over the map, and what was it, he's supposed to, there was one moment where Michael Rooker's supposed to be leading them to the next case and Rooker's not moving fast enough, so he just chokes him. It's like, cool, he's the reason, he's the way to get you guys out of here. But let's fucking hurt that guy.
They have to show what mean villains they are.
No, it's stupid villains. They're all stupid. And like even like Lithgow, it's like there's one point where they have the standoff, and it's like, you know, the girl's the pilot, and I'm the only pilot left, and he kills her. Like, there can only be one. Now I must survive. Yeah. What if you get hurt, motherfucker? How are you gonna get off the cliff? You dumbass. Like you're supposed to be the brains of the operation, but let's kill your girlfriend because she knows how to fly a plane. And then the one that
got me was
one more stupid bad guy rant done.
Right.
Then you have the guy, generic British guy, number 3, where it's like him and Rooker alone, and he's like, you know, just kill him, make it quick, don't make a lot of noise. And he decides, I'm going to broadcast a soccer game.
Oh, that soccer game thing.
Of you. And it's like, you deserve to die, because it's like you have a gun, you could shoot him. I get you don't want to make noise, but let me describe myself playing soccer while I kick you and take all the time in the world for you to recover and kill me. Oh no, how did this happen? How did the tables turn on me? These villains are so goddamn dumb.
So you left out the one that got to me was Leon, who you might know from Cool Runnings, who I loved in Cool Runnings, by the way.
Oh yeah.
The black guy. He was just like so overplaying. Like he was just the whole time, every scene, he's just making this face like, I'm the villain. He's like, you know, just.
You know what he was trying to be? You know what he was trying to be? He's trying to be. I can't remember where we are in terms of release dates. It's like he was trying to be the villain version of Wesley Snipes in Passenger 57.
Passenger 57 was the year before this. But yeah, like, I could see that.
Yeah, I'm cool. I know martial arts, but I'm the bad guy.
Yeah, he would just every time he said a line or made a face, he was just like, hey. It was like, oh god.
Yeah, and it's like Stallone I feel like is strong up until he gets into the action scenes, and then it's just him going through the motions. Like the whole hit is like him coming, you know, after the initial opening number, him and those scenes with his girlfriend, what was it, Janine Turner
from Northern Exposure. Yeah,
she was not good in this movie. I mean, I've watched Paint
She never did have much of it. I don't even know if she did many movies after this besides straight to video stuff. Northern Exposure was a big hit, but then she didn't really do many movies after that.
She has Rebecca Hall like atmosphere in her acting.
I know how you feel about her.
Paint drying was more enthusiastic than her in this film. But Stallone was doing really, really good in those moments, like, you know, showing a guy who's grieving and hurt and doesn't know how to move on past this initial thing in the beginning of the film. And then we get to the action films, and it's just like, it's Stallone by to the numbers. And it's not even good Stallone stuff. I mean, he's basically going Rambo in the, you know, it's Die Hard on a cliff, but it's also Rambo in the Alps, basically, but not nearly as good. And it's just like, and then like the end, the whole end, like, so what was it, like the feds show back up in the chopper, and they're right above them, like, good job, guys. Hang around here for a few hours. We'll send someone to come get you. You're in a fucking chopper. They're hurt. Get them up. It's like, and then it's like end of movie.
It's not really a place for them to land. I don't know.
No, but it's like,
but also,
hours, end of film.
But that's just it. Also, that ending. He goes, "Hey, hang around for a few hours. We'll send somebody to get you." Credits. It was like, just a sudden ending. I'm like, was there supposed to be another scene there or something?
That's always been something that's been driving me nuts about when having to go back and watch classic films. Granted, this is 90s, so there's no excuse for this. But like going back and watching old movies, I think it was like what was it? North by Northwest was the most recent one I watched, where it was like, yeah, the end, done. It's like,
it just ends so suddenly. Yeah.
Where was the transitional ending to this film? And
at least fade out or something. Come on.
Like, all right, cool. Hang around for a few hours. Credits. It's like, wow, Rennie Harlan, did you really not have an ending plan for this film? Like, you could have at least showed them like landing up from a chopper, like safe. Like, you left them kind of injured and left them on the cliff. Yeah, I didn't enjoy watching Cliffhanger. Like, revisiting it, it kind of ruined the movie for me. It makes me kind of worried to go back. No, I've seen this one recently. I still like this. I was worried about going back and like rewatching like Over the Top or Tango and Cash.
Over the Top.
I love Tango and Cash though.
Over the Top is horrible to start with. Oh my god.
I mean, Over the Top. I just like the. Like, But I mean, over the top. I was gonna say they should remake it, but they did. It's real steel, and it's done way better. But I mean, but it makes me like worried to go back and watch like Cobra or Commando or stuff like that because like, oh god, are those all really that bad?
They were all bad to start with, though. Those were all bad to start with.
Yeah, but I was young. I was young when I watched them, and so like for me.
Well, I'll tell you now. If you go back and watch them now, you're gonna see that those are bad.
Well, not Tango and Cash. I like Tango and Cash.
Maybe not Tango and Cash, but Cobra and Commando.
I haven't watched Cobra or Commando in such a long time. Like I say, it's like like, and that's the problem with Revisited, and that's why we do it. Is like, were these movies really that good, or just
no? I would not put this one in the same vein as those, though, because I mean, while yes, I did not enjoy it as much as I originally did. I still thought it was fine. It was a decent action movie. It just wasn't anything great.
It was. I just felt like it was lazy.
It was just generic 90s action movie number 23,
Yeah, but for some reason, I mean, like, look, I mean, it made $255 million overall. I mean, it was just like, it has a huge following. Like, people remember Cliffhanger. Like, I remember Sudden Death for Jean-Claude Van Damme, the hockey one. I die hard in a hockey arena, basically. I remember really, really liking that. I know if I go back and watch that, it's probably not a good movie. But I would probably still like that way, way more than Cliffhanger. But yeah, this is one of those situations where I was so excited to go back and rewatch a movie that I thought I really, really enjoyed. And watching it going, wow, do I hate Cliffhanger now? Because I am not enjoying this. I'm more annoyed watching this than I am having fun watching it. This was one of those where the Revisited backfired on us. More so on me, probably. You're probably like, I knew exactly what movie it was. It didn't surprise
mostly,
me.
But yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it was like a holy crap, like
crushed your childhood.
The pie is a lie. By the way, continuation from last week. Portal movie. They're fucking making a Portal movie.
Well, all they said is yes, it's still in development, but it's been in development for 8 years, so who knows?
No, but they was like, it was like brand new news, like the script's being written and everything. I was like, it's like they watch our show. Like, we need to get back on the Portal movie, guys. Sean and Brian are talking about it. We better get going. We gotta start casting people for this. Anyway, Cliffhanger, like I said, it's on Amazon Prime in 4K. It's a little jarring watching it in 4K. But yeah, it's, if you have fun nostalgia for this film and you have not watched it in a very, very long time, don't watch it. Because it's going to kind of burst your nostalgia bubble. Because it's not as good as I remembered it being. Unless you guys just really, really like Stallone movies, you'll probably watch it and still think it's amazing.
Or if you just don't mind sitting and watching just a fairly average, generic action movie, which sometimes is fine, watch it.
There's just so many other action movies out there that I would rather waste my time watching than going back and rewatching Cliffhanger. Next, we're going to be going to our featured film. This is a movie that Brian and I, once again, it was one of those where we both went, all right, which movie do you want to do for feature? Which one do you want to do? And we both said the same one at the same time. We were like, yes. We both love this movie. It is a remake that we both agree is better than the original version.
Not even close.
Yeah, not by a long shot.
By a lot.
By a very, very big long shot. This film came out in 2003, and it is the heist film, The Italian Job. The Italian Job came out May 30th, 2003, had a budget of $60 million, had a weekend opening of $19.45 million. Number 3, its opening weekend behind Finding Nemo in its first week and Bruce Almighty in its second week. Had a finished box office of $176.07 million, $106 million domestic, and $69.9 million international. Yeah, we love this movie. Even going back and rewatching it, I was like, God, I love The Italian Job. It's so good. I didn't notice this, probably because at that age I wasn't paying attention to this, that at one point Edward Norton's character is watching the original Italian Job.
Now that you mention it, I think I remember hearing that like in a bit of trivia, but I didn't notice at the time because I hadn't seen the original one then. I knew it existed, but I hadn't seen it before I saw this one.
It's when they're first staking out his house, and he goes, what do you do when you have this much? You have a big TV, and he stands around TV, and you see Michael Caine. And it's like, shit, he's watching The Italian Job. It's like, oh, you.
Is it, or is it just a Michael Caine movie?
No, it's The Italian Job.
Is it? Okay.
It is. It's The Italian Job. Because I was like, that would be pretty funny if that was it. And I looked up and was like, oh, shit, it totally was. Like, sneaky. Yeah, I enjoy the hell out of this movie. At the time, this was still me being introduced to Jason Statham, because like I said, I didn't watch, Lock, Stock, Smoking Barrels, Snatch. I didn't watch those movies. So Italian Job to me was kind of my introduction to Statham before, like The Transporter and all those movies came out. So to me, first time I ever thought of Statham, I always thought of Handsome Rob, and of course Seth Green is great in the film, Mos Def also, and then of course Wahlberg, which I like Wahlberg, but here there are some acting choices he's made that make me really, really angry at him. But we like Wahlberg in these kinds of films, like we talked about The Big Hit a few weeks back, and then of course we have been on a huge Charlize Theron hit recently. If you don't know what the last film we're going to be talking about is, she's also in that one. And then she was in Mad Max last week. We're all of a sudden, Charlize Theron is the new Brendan Fraser. But yeah, Italian Job, only the Italian Job can make those tiny ass cars look cool. I think everyone wanted.
I wanted one after I saw this movie.
Yeah, I never thought I would want a car so freaking small, but after watching Italian Job, I wanted those cars. This is the only movie that made those cars look cool. I saw one of them drive by the other day, and I'm like, Italian Job. Brian, what are your thoughts on the Italian Job?
So yeah, I mean, so the Italian Job came out, and again, I knew the original existed, but didn't know anything about it. But this is a movie that really I wanted to see based on the cast. Mark Wahlberg, I'm not a big fan of as much nowadays, especially, but I think when he has fun, I like him. When he does Big Hit, when he does this, when it's not taking himself so seriously, whether in dramas or just like serious action movies, I'm not as big a fan of his at all. But he was actually the person in this movie I was not uninterested, but I was least interested to see, only because I love Seth Green and anything he does. Jason Statham had just done The Transporter the year before, and so I loved him in that. Charlize Theron, of course, we already talked about her. But yeah, well, I mean, the whole cast across the board is the only one I would say. Edward Norton is very hit and miss for me, and I'd say if there's a weak link in this movie, it's him. It's something about him I know you're not supposed to like him, but I don't like his acting style. I guess I don't know.
I think I personally think with Norton now, and I don't think I realized that as much the first time around. They don't give him enough screen time. Like to really we get him in the beginning, but even in the beginning, we're establishing like Donald Sutherland and Mark Wahlberg relationship, and he's just kind of there. So when the whole swerve happens, you're like, oh, well, of course it is. It's Edward Norton. Why wouldn't it have been him? And then we're watching him as the group's watching him. We're not really in his. Like I think the only time we ever get him by himself is when he goes and does the exchange with the gold bars. We don't get enough of Edward Norton's a fantastic actor, but I think we don't get enough of him in the film to really fully establish his character outside of this is the asshole who screwed them over. He's basically just copying everything that they wanted, to the point where he's a guy who literally has no dreams or imagination. He just copies what everyone else does, which is the whole basis of his argument. But I feel like if we could have got a little bit more of him, maybe his character would have been a little bit stronger. But I think he does a good job playing that character. He just probably could have used a few more scenes.
He was fine. He's probably, just for me, the least interesting part of the movie. But I did like how they had him like copying everybody else's what they wanted to buy and stuff though. But I mean, so basically the cast is what kind of got me to it. But then the action in this movie is just, I'm always a sucker for a heist movie, a well done heist movie. I love it. From the setup to the creative way they do it and the getaway and all that kind of stuff. And this movie, it just does such a great job with it. Not only with obviously the big set pieces like with the cars and the driving scenes and the actual heist, but even when they do the whole 3-card Monty following the trucks and how they figure it out by looking at the camera to see which one's riding low, things like that. It's just I like that it was intelligent, but it was also tons of fun. And it's also another one of those where everything goes wrong, but they still might find a way to pull it off. And that's the main thing. It's just it's a heist movie that's well done with a great cast. You got me sold.
See, and I think the one thing that I really like about heist movies is, yes, the heist itself is fun, but usually at that point you're waiting for the twist or you're waiting for everything to go wrong and all that stuff. I always like
the planning.
Them testing the stuff out, then trying to figure ways out. Oh, this isn't going to work. We got to figure another way around it. Cool. Here's the new way we're going to do it. That's what the Ocean's films I think do it really, really well. This does it really well. I love how they were like, oh, we're not going to be able to get in there and out so fast. So they figure out the whole driving. We get to see them like they built like literally the house in the warehouse they were driving through. It's like that's such a cool thing. And then like I love the planning shit and like Seth Green kind of figuring out how the traffic light stuff works and and then like I said, Statham having to do his handsome Rob getting the uniform, which Seth Green mocking Statham is probably my favorite part of the whole movie.
It is.
It's like. You want my virginity cool? You want my virginity as well? Great. It's just like I love that's probably my if I think back to an Italian Job movie, besides the cars, it's that scene of Seth Green imitating Statham in the car is probably the one I think about most. I would say to me, Wahlberg is the least effective in this film because he's kind of just he's the set piece, and that same thing goes with even George.
He's
Clooney.
the straight man, essentially.
In the Ocean films, he's the one that's got to get everything in a row, and he's got to corral everyone else. Everyone else is the characters, in their own unique ways, and he's the one that's kind of like, all right, here's this. Like Clooney at least gets stuff to do. Wahlberg is just like, Charlize Theron's really, really hot. Maybe I should get closer to her because Donald Sutherland's like a father figure to me. Okay, cool. And then, all right, here's the heist. And it's just like, okay, Wahlberg, you're not really giving me a whole lot in the film, but the movie is working well around you that you don't have to give a whole lot in his role, which is why it works. Whereas, Seth Green, you got the comedy, Statham's the comedy, Mos Def. To me, the best part of Mos Def is how he doesn't like dogs. I had a bad experience.
That's the one line I always think of. I had a bad experience.
Exactly. And then, Seth Green with the whole Napster thing, like it works. Even Charlize Theron with the whole safe cracking thing, like that's super intriguing. That's super interesting. Her character arc to me was more important than, Wahlberg's because her is, having to let go and become like her father. She's used to having to use all the tech and she has to do it the old school way, like her dad taught her, and her basically getting the revenge that way. Like I liked her journey that she was on as well as everyone else's. Wahlberg's just kind of there for the ride. But like you said, and then the whole chase sequence with the cars is fun. The like you said, the shell game is good. Then we get the whole helicopter chase. Even the whole scene with them when they're doing the pavement, where they're slicing the pavement and then they drop the billboard thing. I was just like, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, guys. Like that's so good. Plus, I'm not gonna lie. You know what looks super, super fun? Sliding gold bars down the blanket chute. Like, that looks fun. Like I want to do that. Like when they're just like sliding them down, I'm like, that looks like a fun game. I mean, it's a rich game, but it's a fun.
You can just do it with bricks. You can just do it plain old bricks.
But they're not going to slide as well. They'll get stuck on they're not going to be smooth all the way down. And then even the I got a kick out of it this time too. I don't remember if I found it funny last time, but the big host Samoan guy when he was like doing the one arm putting, he overshoots it every time. And he goes like, "You're so close. You did such a good job." He just keeps hitting it. It's something so small. And then they
told Lefty here, Mos Def, they said, "What if you don't stare?" He's like, "What?" And the whole time he's just like, and he's just staring. What are you staring at?
I need. And then Wahlberg goes like, "Why'd you break him in the first place?"
Right? Why did you? Yeah.
Anyway, Italian Job. I love the movie. It's a fun heist film. Great cast. Funny moments. Great action. Because they're seeing the Italian Job. Definitely something worth checking out. It's definitely with this film, I would say it's not like one of those films where it was before everyone got big. Wahlberg was a name, Norton was a name, but they weren't like where they are now. They weren't like mega star level. They were like kind of like B stars, I would say.
That's actually the kind of cast I love best. I mean, yeah, the big stars can make good movies, but a lot of those movies that I love best are the ones that have like those B-list stars where they're well-known people, but they aren't like superstars. It's not like, Tom Cruise or, Brad Pitt in a movie. It's like this, Charlize Theron, Jason Statham.
Because at this time, this was kind of like Charlize was about ready to either it was right before or right after Monster.
Right before Monster, yeah.
Right before Monster. So she's on the brink of breaking out at that point with Monster. I mean, honestly, before that, like my first thing I think about it was Reindeer Games with Charlize in that. And then Wahlberg, he was obviously he's a few years after Big Hit. Mos Def is really kind of just starting out acting. Statham is finally kind of starting out in the American. Seth Green's honestly probably the biggest name out of that group for you and I at that point, with the Can't Hardly Waits and the Austin Powers and all that kind of stuff. And then you have Edward Norton. He's still kind of he's a name, but he's not like a big name kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. Like they're all kind of on the brink of A-list, but they're kind of that B group, which makes it, to me, that much better. I love going back and watching those movies where they're big stars now, but they weren't then, and you're kind of seeing them grow and develop. I think that's one of the reasons why you and I like watch Can't Hardly Wait. Besides that, it's a great film. Is that you just see always like, oh my God, they were like nobodies in this film, and now look where they're at now. It's like so great.
Well, it seems like every time I watch the movie again, like someone else from it had become a star. Because like I watched the movie and I knew several people had gone on to become stars, things like that. And then I watched it again, after How I Met Your Mother and stuff. Going, oh, it's Jason Segel. I didn't realize he became a star of this.
Exactly.
I watched it again, and like was it Melissa McCarthy? I think was in it. A scene with, and I was like, whoa.
Can't Really Wait?
No. She was in Go.
I was gonna say, I was like, Melissa McCarthy is not in Can't Hardly Wait.
No, but there was a couple other people like that who, like, at the time, even after a couple of watches, hadn't become stars yet. But then later on they did, and so that was another person from that movie.
Exactly. Brian and I are whores to films like that, where we just like get the point and go, oh yeah. It's like Brian's like, yeah. What can we say? But Italian Job. Was it HBO Max?
It is not free anywhere.
Right. I thought it was on HBO Max. But if you guys have never seen Italian Job, definitely check it out. It's definitely a lot of fun. If you guys have never seen the original, I mean, unless you really, really like Michael Caine, I really can't think of anyone else in the cast right off the top of the head except for him. But this cast, though, a lot of fun. Check it out. And if you want a Mini Cooper after this, I don't blame you. There's a Mini Cooper, right?
Mini Cooper,
yeah. So we're moving on to our final film, easily the most divisive film of tonight's episode. I said this last week. I hate this film. Brian loves this film, and it was basically I think Brian was like, "This is gonna." What movie did you say it was gonna be like for me? Where I was where I hated it and then watched it like later, and I'm gonna love it, like a Tropic Thunder, Office Space kind of thing, where I'd appreciate it more.
I think you compared it to Tropic Thunder, but yeah, Office Space was another one that you liked a lot more on rewatch. Yeah. Yeah,
but I don't think it's one of the best comedies of all time, though.
Well, I'm not saying this is either. Let me make that.
No. But you were hoping that I was going to be able to eat crow going back and watching this, and that I judged it too harshly when it came out. Maybe I was in a bad.
Now to say I was right.
But anyway, this is Brian's pick. It is the Seth MacFarlane Western comedy, A Million Ways to Die in the West. It came out May 30th, 2014, had a budget of $40 million, had a weekend opening of $16.79 million. Number 3, its opening weekend behind Maleficent in their first week, and X-Men Days of Future Past in its second week. Had a finished box office of $87.18 million, $43 million domestic, and $44.05 million international. Brian, it's your movie. Take it away. A Million Ways to Die in the West.
So Seth MacFarlane, obviously best known for Family Guy, and there's other American Dad and stuff.
American Dad.
I've never been a giant. I mean, I enjoy Family Guy, but I've never been one of these like really hardcore fans of it. My thing with Family Guy and Seth MacFarlane, a lot of times in general, is that he just has like this shotgun mentality. It's like, I'm just going to throw out 100 jokes, and sure, 40 of them aren't going to work, but 60 of them will.
Like
and that's kind of. What's that?
Like a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, kind of like that. Except stand-up comedians usually at least have worked on their material and kind of refined it and found out which jokes and stuff work before they put out the special on theaters or on Comedy Central or whatever. Mm-hmm. Seth MacFarlane just puts out the finished product like that. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to fill it with beginning to end, just shove in as many jokes as I can, and then some will hit and some will miss. So I went into this one knowing that I was kind of a fan of Seth MacFarlane. Because when he's funny, I think he's really funny, but I didn't know what to expect from this movie because this is the first movie he directed. No, he did Ted. He directed Ted, right?
Did he direct Ted?
I don't even know. Yes, he directed Ted and Ted too, actually. Yes. So he had directed Ted already before this one. But I mean, so I went into this one. Actually, when I first watched it, I will admit I was a little disappointed by it. And actually, what disappointed me is that the movie, when it got weakest, was when it forgot it was a comedy and tried to get too serious. It started following like his actual, the actual drama of him having tried to learn how to overcome this bad guy and be a gunfighter, stuff like that. And these long conversations with Charlize Theron about, everything. And when it kind of wasn't such a zany comedy is when I didn't enjoy it as much. But the jokes that did work in this, I love. I mean, I think this movie is hilarious. Does every joke hit? No, because again, they're just throwing out so many, and a lot of them are just little offhand jokes. And that's one of Seth MacFarlane's weaknesses, is he likes to do these little non sequitur random jokes. And in this movie especially, and I know Sean's going to talk more about this, like he'll take a scene and just start going off on something for like, a 2-minute speech. And that sometimes you're like, okay, we get the joke. Okay, time to move on to something else. But really, I mean, I still find the movie funny. Seth MacFarlane, I will say, is probably, I won't say the weakest thing about it, but it's definitely not the funniest because, I mean, especially Giovanni Ribisi and Sarah Silverman are hilarious as this man whose girlfriend is a prostitute, but they won't have sex before they get married because of God, Neil Patrick Harris is great. Speaking of How I Met Your Mother. Neil Patrick Harris is great in his roles in the mustachery he runs. Amanda Seyfried is kind of wasted to me in this movie. I mean, she's fine, but she's just kind of playing a straight role for the most part. And she can be very funny. So I kind of wish they'd given her more to do in this movie. And there's cameos aplenty. Ewan McGregor shows up in his full Jane Got a Gun garb because they were shooting nearby, so they decided to shove him in a scene just in his full outfit.
I love that we talk about Jane Got a Gun and then we still
right. Which also, it's funny seeing Ewan McGregor on there because Liam Neeson is obviously a big part of this movie. Surprised they didn't shove in a joke about that. But then Ryan Reynolds shows up as a cameo. Jamie Foxx shows up in a cameo. As Django. As Django, yes, as Django. So yeah, I mean, I know that it's not everyone's taste of comedy, but for me, I found it pretty hilarious. Sean is here now to tell you why he changed his mind and loves it now.
All right, so here's let me go through the path of past Sean leading up to this film. I love Seth MacFarlane, or at the time, and in 2014, Sean, I love Seth MacFarlane. I watched every episode of Family Guy. I loved American Dad. Cleveland Show was fine. I mean, it is what it is. I love Ted. Literally one of my closest friends who doesn't live here. He is my Thunder buddy. And whenever he's having a bad day, I literally send him the Ted running into bed like, I'm coming for you, buddy, and then fuck you, Thunder, just to make him have a happy day. Tyler, if you're watching this, that was for you, buddy. But so when I saw this trailer, I'm like, oh my God, Neil Patrick Harris, still super hot off of How I Met Your Mother, Liam Neeson, Charlize Theron, all these people. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be fantastic. Like Tropic Thunder. How could this fail? How does it fail? Seth MacFarlane is how this fails. Because Seth MacFarlane can't get out of Seth MacFarlane's way. And that is the whole problem with this film. Is this film funny? Yes, there are some really, really solid, great laugh out loud moments. Mainly when he does kind of go improv, like you said, when he improvises with Charlize Theron and he catches her off guard, and you could hear the genuine laughs from Charlize Theron in this film. Those are great moments because I'd never seen Charlize Theron have so much fun in a film. Giovanni Ribisi and Sarah Silverman, yes, they're funny. Their lines in the movie are hilarious, and we do get the Ribisi dance, which at first I'm like, don't bring the Ted dance in, but then like 2 seconds later, you're like, I can't say no to that dance. You're muted.
Sorry, I was hiccuping before. I was saying, and they kept it brief enough that it was still just a fun little thing without being.
For us to realize what he was doing and to get a good thrust in before it went out. And then, of course, Neil Patrick Harris is great in this because he's basically being Barney in the West, and the mustache dance is great.
Come on, and the shootout scene with the hats. Come on.
Oh, I wasn't getting to that part yet, but yes, the probably the biggest laugh out loud moment for me was when he shits in the hat and he keeps reaching and the guy keeps slapping his hand away.
And then he probably just goes and grabs it. That was a funny moment. I laughed at that. Here's the problem. Seth MacFarlane gets in the way because Seth MacFarlane and everything he does, Family Guy, American Dad, Cleveland Show, Ted 2 for the most. Ted 1, he kind of stays in the lane. Ted 2, he goes way off the reservation. He has to get on this fucking soapbox and monologue for 1 to sometimes 3 fucking minutes about shit that someone who lives in the West at that time would not be talking about or would not have the full range.
What's the point? It's supposed to be anachronistic.
No, it's fucking stupid, okay? And even everyone around him's like, shut the fuck up. I mean, he just goes on this
People die at
rant.
the fair.
That's not the part I'm talking about. The people die at the fair part was funny because Charlize Theron's a part of that. But like the part where he's like going on a rant about cholera and all this other crap. It's like this is a rant that you would have if like Seth MacFarlane was from the future and he got stuck in the past, like Back to the Future 3, which they make a joke about.
Speaking of which, I just want a really, really quick aside. That might have been a fun cameo if they didn't put it in the fucking TV commercials.
That's very, very true. That's very true.
I hated that. I'm like, oh, that would have been funny if I didn't just see it on TV.
But that's what MacFarlane's character feels like. He feels like a character who's from the future, who knows how the West was, and then is stuck there and is now living in it. And is able to, and it was, well, they didn't show that. And then he's pointing out how shitty everything is while everyone else is just living the West life. And it's fucking annoying. It's ungodly annoying. It takes you out of the movie to the point where everyone around him is like, yeah, you wonder why Seth MacFarlane's character has no friends outside of Ribisi. It's because this is the character that we're supposed to root for. Seth MacFarlane is not a character you want to root for in this film. I wanted Neil Patrick Harris to shoot him. I wanted Liam Neeson to shoot him because Seth MacFarlane's character is a douchebag. He is not a character you want to like. He's a character that you want to see lose. And his character is it's forced down your throats that you're supposed to root for this guy. He's the nice guy that, you know, he gets shit on because he's so nice. No, he's an asshole. He's an asshole who gets walked all over because no one wants to hang out with this guy because he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And then you have to throw in present day racist jokes to make the shit work. Like the African American like big butts joke. I'm sorry. In the West in 18, blah, 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 that joke does not fly. That is a present day joke that he's bringing into the West. It doesn't hit.
That's what makes it funny.
It's not
because
funny.
You're taking anachronistic jokes. You're looking at it as a traditional Western. It's not.
Super racial. Is there a single black person in this fucking film?
Jamie Foxx.
What's that?
Jamie Foxx.
At the very fucking end scene. At the very end scene. Yeah, he's making a black joke. It doesn't hit. It's in poor taste. It doesn't work. And I don't normally get
Poor taste is hilarious.
I don't normally get upset about these kind of things. I just kind of let it go. But in that scene, because of what we've had with this character so far in this film, I'm like, shut the fuck up, Seth MacFarlane. Charlize Theron, she's great in this film. I love Charlize in this film. Most of the cast I actually quite enjoy. But then Seth MacFarlane comes in and fucking ruins everything that's happening in the film. I agree. Amanda Seyfried should have had a hell of a lot more to do in this film. Liam Neeson, why am I saying that weird tonight? He's wasted. The way his character is in this film, he should have been utilized so much better than what he was put into. Then we have the weird.
I would use him less.
You would use him less?
I think that they cut away to Liam Neeson too much. I'm like, just have him show up at the end, you know.
He's barely in the movie, and you want him to be less?
Well, they showed him like in the beginning it made sense. At the end, because the whole thing is he's coming, you know. But they need to see like the asides with him, like, you know, robbing another prospector or whatever later on.
He only robbed the one prospector. That was the beginning, and then in the middle is when he gets back with Charlize and she turns on him. He's only in like 3 scenes the whole movie, and then
I didn't need him much.
He shoots poor Ryan Reynolds, who's just standing there being a good boy, and he gets shot. You know, but he's Deadpool, so he's fine. But that's the problem with this film. I gave it 2 stars. Is it a 2-star film like Paul Blart or something like that? No, Paul Blart is a good job 2 stars. Kevin James, you were by yourself. It's not a good movie, but you did the best you could with what you had. You really didn't have a whole lot of people around you. This is a disappointing 2 stars. You had so many great actors, comedic moments that are here, and you utterly waste this film because Seth MacFarlane needs to get his rocks off talking to nauseating levels because he is director and he gets all these lines and he gets to keep talking and talking and talking, and no one else can tell him to shut up in this film because it's Seth MacFarlane, and he is literally the reason why this movie sucks. If he was killed a million different ways in the film, like a fucking Groundhog Day or an Edge of Tomorrow kind of thing, oh my God, I'd love the movie. That'd be great. If he was the Million Ways You Die in the West and he just kept dying, sold. That's a great film. I would love that movie. And like I said, Ted 2 was the same way. We loved Ted, and then they made it a political thing, and they ruined it, which is why we probably didn't get a third Ted film.
I still love Ted 2. I will say, and that's one of the reasons.
It could have been better if they weren't fucking trying to make it all political soapbox bullshit that Seth MacFarlane always way overdoes.
That's one of the reasons I'm mad that this and Ted 2 didn't do better, because I want to see Seth MacFarlane make more movies, and so far he hasn't made any more since Ted.
Let's put it this way: I love Orville. That's what he's doing now. I love.
See, I wanted to love Orville because I thought it was going to be like a kind of a Galaxy Quest kind of basically spoof of Star Trek, but it's almost just like trying to be straight sci-fi comedy or straight sci-fi. I'm like, I don't really want that from Seth MacFarlane.
And that's the thing too, is we all thought it was going to be a Galaxy Quest spoof, and then it just kind of became its own sci-fi show.
And that bored me. Yeah, so I stopped watching it.
I like it because I like the cast around Seth. It's not Seth; it's the cast around him. He puts himself around great cast because Seth's not really that good. He looks better because of what he's got around him. He's a shitty looking flower in a bouquet of roses. Well, he stands out because he's the one that stands out, but you're not paying attention to him. You're paying attention to everyone else around him. And that's what's wrong with this film. I want to enjoy it. I want to like it. I want to laugh and have fun watching it. But then he starts talking, and then I'm just like, can I fast forward through this shit? That's this movie in a nutshell for me. I wanted to be wrong, Brian. I wanted to come in and go.
And you are wrong. Don't anybody listen to Sean. It's a funny movie. Watch it. Forget what you've heard about it.
There are some great funny moments. I will admit, mainly from Neil Patrick Harris and Giovanni Ribisi and Sarah Silverman and even Charlize Theron. Those 4 have some great funny moments. I think that even the cameos with McGregor and Ryan Reynolds, they're enough of a shock factor that they're there. The Django one did not work for me.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the Django.
At that point, I was just like an eye roll. I would have preferred Ted showing up or Mark Wahlberg showing up than Django. Well, just because of the Ted-verse kind of thing. But those 4 have great lines. They're funny, but they're surrounded by a king douchebag and Seth MacFarlane. I'm sure Seth's probably a really nice guy in person, but the way he portrays himself on this film made me want to punch him in the face. And I wish, like I said, he did die a million different ways in the West in this film. I think it would have made it a hell of a lot better and more enjoyable to watch. And that's my opinion of it. I know Brian loves this film. I'm not trying to shit on his parade, but that's what this show is. He shits on my movies sometimes. I shit on his movies sometimes. And I told Brian, you're doing so well. We had like a few good weeks where he was picking movies that we liked together. We were in harmony, and then he had to go and pick this fucking film out of spite because I made you watch Crystal Skull again.
That was not the reason, but okay.
I think it was the reason. Anything else you want to add on? Let's put it this way: is there anything else you want to add about this film? And I will retain from saying anything.
No, I've pretty much said my piece on this one.
Okay.
I just disagree with Sean. I say check it out, but that's just me.
Check it out for everyone except for Seth MacFarlane. I will agree with that. That is our episode, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Weekend Crusaders. If you did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. Of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we had the Quiet Place Part 2 came out this week. My review is already out. Brian, real quick, thoughts on Quiet Place Part 2 since you don't do reviews with me.
Quick version. I liked it, but I thought there wasn't a whole lot to it. It felt like an episode of Quiet Place the series. Like it felt like there should have been like it was like one chapter of a much longer story, not just like and it's fine in a trilogy or something like that. but it's just like it felt like if like The Quiet Place was a series like The Walking Dead, just one episode of that. But what there was of it, loved it.
And the shouldn't feel Noah Jupe's character. Did you see Cruella yet? Because I have not.
I have not watched that yet.
Okay, Cruella. It's probably not going to be out this weekend. I'm probably going to have to watch it sometime next week. There will be a review out. I promise I'll watch it and I'll see what it's all about. I'm hearing mixed. I'm hearing it's great. I'm hearing it's shit. Not hearing a whole lot of things in the middle. We'll see what happens there. Is there anything that comes out next week?
Next week's only major release is The Conjuring.
Oh, yeah, The Conjuring. I love The Conjuring. So I'm actually excited to see that. There'll definitely be a review for that. And, of course, we will be back, obviously, next week with a new episode of The Weekend Crusaders with 5 new movies. This is actually a really, really good list. This is a good list. We got one of my favorite action films of all time that Brian's like, on. This is going to be his revenge for The Million Ways to Die in the West. Then we've got an animated film that was originally going to be my pick. Brian goes, no, I want this. And I'm so glad he did because I fucking love this.
I will say I went through about 4 different movies trying to pick my pick for this week. But then I wasn't sure which ones to watch. So I watched this one like, nah. Watched another one like, no, I don't really like that one as much anymore either. So I'm like, I don't know what else to pick. I'm like, wait, Sean isn't using that. I'll take it.
And it's like, I think it was I was like 5 minutes into it. I'm like, Brian, I'm so glad you picked this. I'm so happy I got to watch this again because I had to pick this other one for other reasons. Our feature film is a sci-fi favorite for a lot of people over the last decade. I'm actually really excited that I got to go back to it because I hadn't seen it since it came out because there's a sequel on the way here very soon. Not very soon. No, I think they're gonna.
Not if you believe the actress. She still says it's maybe.
I mean, I think it's because of COVID, but I think there will be a sequel. But anyway, we're gonna resurface that. We have a stinker. Oh, this stinker makes me so mad. This is going to be one of those hate-fueled episodes with Sean because this is a movie that I wanted to be excited about. This is a movie I wanted, kind of like, so many, A Million Ways to Die in the West. I wanted to be really excited about this film, and I fucking hated it. So we're going to watch that again. Yay. And then we've got a crime classic that I have never seen up to this point that I've been told to watch so many times by my tag team partner. I'm finally going to watch it, Kirk. So, yay.
Well, Kirk's opinion's got to take with a grain of salt anyway, though. But okay.
I'm abstaining myself from that. I'm not gonna bury myself by saying anything. But yes, Kirk does have a particular taste in films, which is why you're my co-host and not Kirk. But come on, dude. He thought Wall-E's was a 1-star film. Give me a break. We could do a whole thing about Kirk's 1-star movie. Most of them we talked about on the show anyway. But anyway, those are the movies we got. Figured out what those are. And until next time, in case we don't see you, I'm Sean Wasserkrug. That's Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders. In case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Weekend Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.